Welcome back to the Becoming You podcast. This is my very first episode recording for 2025. It's the new year. Some of you may have already experienced what we call Quitter's Day on January 19th, where all the goals that you created, you're like, I'm not doing so well on them. But others of you might be crushing your to-do list and still feeling unfulfilled. So wherever you're at, whether you felt like you're a productivity machine and you're just getting things done, or you're wondering, am I actually enjoying my life? Or you're still struggling to really adopt the habits that are going to create the results that you want into 2025 and beyond. Today, we're going to be talking all about how productivity and motivation can align with feminine flow, how to stay on track without burning out, how to ensure you've got that work-life balance that actually feels good. And we're going to be exploring how to get things done while truly being in alignment with yourself, with your soul, with your goals, with your long-term vision. I'm actually in my new office, and I am so excited to be here to kick off this year with you. First thing is I want to talk about productivity without fulfillment. That is the biggest problem. We can feel like a machine, right? We're like 10xing it, and it's very masculine. So the question and the struggle is, how do we balance getting things done, right? Doing the do with actually feeling aligned and feeling joyful and the be. And I started doing a little research on this because, you know me, I'm a former journalist. I love researching things to back up the way that I feel. Some people like research and then they have a feeling about it. And I'm like, this is how I feel, but is it just me? So I was reading some studies that show that dopamine spikes from task completion, right? And that feels really rewarding. You're adding things to your to-do list after you did them, even though they were on the to-do list. I am absolutely guilty of that. And I noticed my kids are doing it too. Like I started giving my son a to-do list in the morning and he's doing the things. And then he's like, wait, I just did this thing that wasn't written down. And then he wants to write it down and check an extra box. But here's the problem. And this is what a lot of those very masculine, like GSD, get shit done books don't talk about, is that if you are just task completing over and over, but it isn't tied into deeper alignment to not just a goal that you're going to check off, but to really like something that is fulfilling you and your purpose, you're going to burn out. And like, hello, I have been there. And I would like to say I learned from the first time. I didn't. And so I've experienced this over and over. And that's really the plight of most female entrepreneurs I talk to. So there was a 2023 study that was on work-life balance. And, you know, I kind of go back and forth. Is balance a real thing? Is it harmony? But the study shared that people who prioritize tasks that align with their long-term values, not just short-term goals, but long-term values, actually report a much higher life satisfaction than those who are really just focused on being efficient. And I want to talk to you because I know you are a woman, probably. I guess, you know, there can be people that are men or non-binary that are listening, but primarily it's women. And as a woman, we often struggle with this pressure of operating in a hypermasculine productivity mode, right? And prioritizing our output over our intuition, over our enjoyment. Like they say, like what a woman has a 28-day cycle, a man has a 24-hour cycle, and the corporate system is absolutely built for that. And I know I was in that for a long time. And it gave me that short-term feeling of the dopamine, and it gave me the satisfaction, but it did not give me fulfillment. I mean, I love productivity, right? I love it. And again, there is that high of checking things off the list. But when you really just stop and look and say like, okay, I'm getting things done, but am I actually feeling good? And I will say, I feel better getting things done, even if they're not in alignment, than doing nothing. And when I say nothing, I won't talk about like vacationing or being at the spa, but if I'm just feeling like I'm, you know, on a hamster wheel. But the question really is like, am I living the life that I envision, that I dream of? Like I told my husband the other day, I was driving my first day to the new office. I was taking my car through the car wash. I was getting here a little early and it's super bright and light, a little warm right now. And I'll tell you why later, that I moved out of my home after 10 years. I've always worked in my home office. When I was driving to work in the corner office, I had Taylor Swift on. I was literally going through the car wash. So I was in neutral and I was like rocking out. And I told my husband, this must be like 44 of going to do something that you're totally lit up about. I have a 5-minute commute that I can walk to cute little restaurants. And my level of excitement, I felt like this is what in my 20s when I was going out to the nightclub. I mean, not that I did that many nightclubs in my 20s. I was usually bartending at one, but it was like that level of like, oh my gosh, I couldn't be more excited. And that's what we want to feel. And maybe not all of the time, but we do want to feel it. So this year I'm shifting my alignment and right sizing my life. And it's a continual process, but making sure I'm not just focused on efficiency, but on the being, not just the doing. And, you know, we often think about like our words for the year, not just a goal. So this year I decided I was going to have a very non-sexy word, which is consistency, but then I'm a little extra Enneagram 7 here. So I said, let's have 3 words. And these are 3 core areas or 3 feelings that are keeping me not only motivated, but in flow. Consistency, connection, and then CPR, which I realize is an acronym, and it actually stands for creativity, play, and restoration. So I guess I really have 5, but I look at the CPR as like, CPR takes care of my soul, and so does connection. Consistency takes care of all of the other things. And maybe that's because my last name starts with C, Cafiero, but those are the 3 pillars this year for creating an aligned life that's both productive and fulfilling. So I'm going to go through each of these, and I of course encourage you to adopt your own, but I'm going to give you kind of a little new format we're trying out for Becoming You, is I'm going to give you some action work or some actionable steps by the end so that when I'm sharing what's working for me, you can create your own version of it in a way that works for you and your life. So number 1, C, consistency. Like this is the key to sustainable success and fulfillment. And so I looked at like, well, what do I want to create that's sustainable, that's not just like a short-term goal, right? Sustainability is really about the long term. And so here's what's working for me. And I will tell you, between Christmas and New Year's, I really sat down and I was like, who do I want to become? Not just what do I want to achieve? So these are the things that I decided to focus on. And they're not a lot. You know what? We're always looking for a magic bullet. And often it's so much about going back to basics. So morning movement, I built in the structure. Well, it's structured, but it's also flexible where 2 days a week, I do yoga in the morning, Pilates one day, and then 2 days a week, I do strength training with an instructor, a trainer over Zoom. And I make sure this is first thing in the morning. And while this may not be the best for my hormones, I have protein first. I've learned fasted workouts don't work for me and my hormones at my age, but it works for me because I am serving myself and my body before I serve anyone else that day. What I found is because I'm getting up at like 4:45, 5 to do this, and I'm going to bed earlier, and it's working really well. Well, I'll talk to you about my protein intake too. One of my goals, consistent, not sexy. The other thing is the 5-minute journal. Now, there's physical versions of this, and I got one years ago from a friend, but they have an app. And I'll tell you, it actually takes about maybe 2 minutes in the morning, a minute in the evening, daily gratitude and goal setting that is so simple. And again, this is not an hour-long morning routine. I'd love to have one of those again, but I've got 2 young children, so I'm like, done beats perfect. But I wake up in the morning and it asks me, what are 3 things I'm grateful for? And it's usually some version of my family, my health, and then one other thing, maybe a friend, a teammate, something that's exciting that's happening. And then it's what are the 3 things I'm going to get done today? And that allows me to focus on like, hey, here's 3 main things. There's usually one for my business, maybe 2, and then one related to some other area of my life. And here's a cool thing, is at night is the reflection time. And that looks like what went really well today, or like, what are you grateful for from today, which is typically compounding on what you were grateful for in the morning or rewarding you for getting those things done. And then the second thing is, if you could change one thing about today, what would it be? And here's what I found is almost every day, I've been doing this for today, the 23rd. I've been doing this for 3 weeks now. Almost every night, the thing that I was writing down was either I should have prioritized my number 1 priority more. Maybe I got done 2 and 3, but I didn't finish number 1, or I should have gone to sleep earlier. And so instead of being like, you must get done number 1, or I must go to bed earlier because I don't like feeling controlled even by myself, instead it's just giving me a feedback mechanism to reprioritize the next day and to better. And then the next day when I say like what went well, I can share that whatever I prioritized or, getting a good night's sleep helped me be more successful. Other thing in the morning is, what is your affirmation? And mine is just, I am consistent, because again, I'm focusing on consistency. Another consistent thing that is working really well is reading over watching. And I will share, when I say reading, I mean listening to Audible. I love opening a physical book. I love it. I'm okay with Kindle or reading on my phone, but I really love physical books. What I kept finding is I was having a hard time just making the time during the day or at night. But when I am listening, I guess it's technically multitasking, but it doesn't feel like it if I'm doing the dishes or making my kids lunches, is I'm listening. And not only do I move a little quicker, but I'm excited. I have a different energy because I'm learning. And so I won't say given up completely, but heavily transferred over to listening to Audible books versus watching to TV on my phone. I always say I don't really watch it. I'm more listening, but it still is a different energy. And I've noticed my energy is literally higher. I'm more excited because when we're learning new things or we're inspired or we're having those aha moments, which sorry to, Hulu and Netflix, but they don't always come from that. So really choosing audiobooks or even podcast. And then the last consistent thing, which is again, not sexy as focusing on my protein and my nourishment. I have been for 13 years off and on, pretty much consistently drinking protein shakes, but some days I'd miss it, or some days I would only get in one. And with the level of activity I have, both with workouts and just I get a lot of steps in, I have to have 100 grams a day. And I've been noticing in the last 2.5, 3 weeks of doing this, a massive change in my body composition. And again, this is so basic, but it's prioritizing that physical health for longevity and feeling good. So, okay, why does consistency work? And I would say one of your 3 goals this year should be consistency, unless you're already a massively consistent person. And then maybe it's like doing more new things. But the Atomic Habits principle, which is such a phenomenal book, is small, consistent actions compound over time, more than like massive, bursts. So are you going to get more out of working out 5 days a week for 30 minutes a day, or once a week for 3 hours? Obvious, right? And then aligning with your identity. Like, I am a person who moves every day. I am consistent. I am always learning, and make your affirmations more about the habits you're creating versus just a goal. Okay, C number 2 is connection. This is all about the energy of true relationships. So what's working for me? Again, this is like a 3-week thing. I redid not just my habits, but my schedule over January. And I have been leaning into that, and I'm being fed as a human being, and my soul is being fed. So in person over Zoom. Now, I wish that my clients were in person, but I've been carving out time on Thursdays and Fridays for real face-to-face connection with friends, with creative collaborators. Even if it's 2 or 3 hours a week, on a walk after work. My kids are in after-school activities, and it's like literally 1 hour, which is not enough time to do much. But I found if I meet someone and do a walk with them for 45 minutes, I feel so excited, and I'm in a very different energetic state when I go back to pick up my kids. So prioritizing that. Scheduled social times. Again, Thursday, Fridays are my connection days. That's built into my calendar. And I'm really working to not schedule over that. And then the last is I just call it community engagement. Whether for me, it's like being a room mom at my son's school. I'm heading up the Boot, Scoot, and Boogie school event. It's building that community, because I've always felt, since I became an online entrepreneur, like I had amazing community all over the world that I'd see once or twice a year at an event or a retreat. But I'm getting so much joy out of being able to wave to people that I know, or, see them at birthday parties, and really feeling connected instead of like an outsider. Because the connection is what nourishes us. It fills us up in ways that, sometimes the digital interactions don't. Like, even if you love seeing someone Zoom, you're not going to get the same oxytocin you will from a hug if you're a hugger. I am. Again, the oxytocin, the bonding hormone, like that leads to deeper relationships. Okay. Number 3, CPR. By the way, if you love this, I have a full episode on this that you can go back to. CPR stands for creativity, play, and restoration. I call it CPR, not only because it's a cute acronym, but because I was in a place about 2 years ago where things were going well on paper. I was in expansion of my business, and I felt like I was flatlining. And I looked at it, I'm like, I'm not doing things that feel creative. I don't feel like I'm having fun. And I need to restore my mental and physical health. So what's working for me here? Burlesque class. I'm probably going to talk more and more about burlesque, because yes, it's movement and I want to move my body. It's dance. It's the most body positive thing I've ever done. And the connection with the women and the incredible support. I tell people I had never found such support outside of a few women groups I'm in. Obviously the Pitch Club, of real collaboration and support over competition, until I joined burlesque. Nothing like, making sure someone's pasties are on straight, or, helping them apply their eyelashes, to just connect with a human being. Creative time. So this is planning, designing, writing. Art is something I'm really called to. I've had a few meetings with several artists, because Carmel is literally full of artists. And I'm like, hey, we need to do a collaboration here. I'm doing a collaboration with one of the local designers, body workers, who wants to write a book. And I was like, let's create an artistic collaboration. And it feels nourishing, not just productive, right? There's a lot of things that feel productive that don't nourish us, don't make us feel excited. And if you ask, what am I giving my energy to and what am I getting back? I feel that creativity just does that. And of course, play. Burlesque is both. It's creativity and it's play. It's pretty restorative outside of, I'm usually sore in bizarre places the next day, but the play is so important. So what is play for you? And how are you building that in to, again, keep that energy and inspiration high? And then restoration. So these are prioritizing activities that recharge me, like getting more into my infrared sauna. I miss not having my when I can go sit in and do all the things. I have a sauna blanket. It's a little more work to get out. But when I'm in there, my arms are literally in there. It's you're basically in a sleeping bag zipped up to your neck. And I can basically do breath work. That is it. Or beach walks, getting to the beach at least once a week. I'm 5 blocks from the beach. I can literally hear the ocean with my windows open most days. And so not just hearing it, but getting there. Because every time I'm there, I'm like, oh my God, I need to be here every day. And getting my feet in the sand. But the creativity and the play reduce stress, and they increase our motivation. And of course, restoration is essential for high performers. burnout is the killer of productivity and joy. It doesn't matter how much we can get done if we end up burning out and stopping all progress and momentum. So actionable steps for you, because I don't want to it's great if you're inspired by this, but I want to give you something that can actually help you, especially if you're feeling like a productivity machine or you're struggling because you've been a productivity machine in the past and you burnt out and you're just craving like more flow. So how do we integrate these 3 elements into your life? So first is create your own themes. Mine are C's, but think about like what are the 2 or 3 words that define what you're craving this year, maybe what you need and what you want. So where mine are creativity, connection, CPR, maybe yours are ease, energy, exploration, or presence, passion, and play. But what does that look like to give you not only the results you want, but the feelings you want? And then step 2 is just building the consistency, even if your word isn't consistency, with small habits. Right. So again, shout out to Atomic Habits. It's such a great book, and it really will change the way that you look at not setting goals, but setting up habits. And I'm a big fan of choosing one non-negotiable daily action that supports your identity. Like if I'm a person that moves every day, where are you planning in movement? Because I know most days I'm going to get that workout, and I'm probably also going to get a 30-minute walk, which is walking my kids round trip to school and taking the dog. Or I'm a person that prioritizes connection. Another thing I've been doing is when I drive, if I know I'm going to be in the car for 30 minutes or more, I will schedule that time to do a connection call. Now, that doesn't mean like on my 5-minute commute, I'm going to listen to music, right? But prioritizing connection, I find that phone calls really fulfill me. Or I'm a person that nurtures creativity. Like, what are you going to sign up for? I was looking yesterday at pottery classes. I went to a birthday party yesterday with my daughter, and we wanted to paint this rainbow thing, and she started it. She did like one brush stroke and then she ran off to do the next thing. And I'm like, I'm going to sit here and paint this thing. She still claimed it because she said she picked it out. But that is number 2, is like, where can you schedule in that consistency? And then the 3rd is connection. And even if connection isn't one of your words or your focus is maybe it's presence, the connection, whether it's with your partner or your children or your friends or even clients, how can you schedule in-person meetups to meet a friend or a colleague face to face? You can do a walk and talk. You don't have to sit down for lunch. You can do a walk and talk, move your body. For many years, and until this has become a habit, I used to say my non-negotiables are connection, time in nature, and movement. I get that every day now, either walking my kids to school or now I walk with one of my neighbors to Pilates on Saturday morning. So I'm building that in where I get all of those things done. And the beautiful thing is by 9 a.m. when I'm starting my day, all of my non-negotiables are checked off, which means that day is already a success. Again, the phone calls while driving transforms. If you have a longer commute, it transforms that time into meaningful connections. Or have a monthly social ritual. Next Friday, I have creative mornings. And I know every month I'm going to be inspired by a speaker. It's a club called Creative Mornings. So check it out in your area. But maybe it's a book club for you, or it's a dance class. And then prioritize that CPR, that creativity, play, and restoration. You can literally ask yourself daily, what's one thing I can do today that feeds my soul? And I'm a big fan of having a menu of these things, because you may wake up tired if if you don't sleep well, if you have kids that bust into your bedroom like mine do. But if you have a menu and you can just look and say, it's like going to your favorite restaurant. It doesn't matter what I'm in the mood for today. I know I've got options. Make sure you've got those options already built in. Incorporate movement, right? It's going to help you live longer and it's going to bring joy. I have never felt worse after a workout. I will say, don't kill me here if you're a Pure Barre fan. I'm not a fan. And every time I do one of those workouts, I'm like, this just reminds me, it's like once a month. I'm reminded why I don't like Pure Barre. I love Bar 3, but I always feel better just for working out. And then the last is just give yourself permission to rest, right? It's actually productive. Now, if you're needing to rest all the time, you probably have either a health issue or maybe it's a motivation issue because there's something maybe you're not dealing with. But if you just need to rest, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, productivity is not about getting done all the things. It's about feeling alive while you're doing. It's about being while doing. It's about aligning your actions with your identity and surrounding yourself with true connection and making space for that creativity, whatever you call that. My husband is building model trains in the garage with my son. That's his creativity. And it's about resting. So I'm asking you, where can you be more consistent? Where can you build in connection? And how can you create more creativity, play, and restoration in your life to right-size your life to feel truly fulfilled and not just productive? So if this episode, if it resonated with you, if you want to just be accountable for your goals, whether you're listening to this at the beginning of the year, anytime, send me a DM, share with a friend who needs to hear this. And if you want to dive in deeper, check out the Balanced Blueprint for more on CPR, creativity, play, and restoration.